Hello there, and welcome to my Arty Corner here on YouTube. My name's Angela Porter, and amongst other things, I'm an artist, but I also believe that every human is an artist, a creative, and it's finding out how you like to express yourself and just doing it. And that sounds easy, but it really is about having a go and working again and again and again, and with some encouragement and help and advice, and hopefully I'm able to give that to some of you, or it makes sense to you, and I'm ever so grateful for you for doing that. So what I have here in front of me is my infinity card, which if you've watched the last two videos, I made it quickly in one and added, this is the first panel, this is the second one I added. I've got another one's these, but where are they going to fit? Well, we have to open our card up. So I'm looking to put panels, well, one panel on here. I'll keep the other one for the next day, the next video, I think. So it'll fit here quite nicely. And these little edges, I really am enjoying them, these little borders that we get on these. So let me just pop these out the way safely and make a start on doing something with this. I think I'm going to make a little pocket again on this one. So I've got my little punch here, and I'm deliberately going to put it off centre because I'm not very good at finding the centres on things, but hopefully this will be, there we go. So I've got a little notch out there, just a little bite out of this, which will be fantastic. And I'm just going to use my pencil just to give myself a little area to work in, because if I don't, I'll end up going outside the edges, and I don't want to do that unless I absolutely have to. It's a bit wonky, but we can live with wonky. So the whole aim of this infinity card is as a place for me to keep my favourite patterns, like a pattern storage. Or if you've got somebody who loves patterns, who's into Zentangle, you could gift it to them as a suggestion. Here's my favourite patterns, perhaps you'd like to use some of those. I'm also putting patterns together that I think I often use together, or that I like, or that share something in common, so you know they're going to go together. So on this one, as well as some daisies, which are some of my favourites, I put some flowy patterns. This one, a number of people have said it's like Senna. Didn't have that in my mind. These are just flowy patterns that I draw. This one is Diva Dance, which is a Zentangle pattern. And on this one is basically one tangle, although I did put this here because it's a little arch, and I love arches. And for the pokey things to grow off, because there's a classic poke root, there's a classic poke leaf, but there's some poke pods, I'm calling them. So seed pods that grow in the same kind of way, and various leaves as well. So variations there. And some of these berries have ended up looking a bit like seed pods or rose hips. So, do you know what? In my head, I've got no idea what I want to do here at all. But I suspect I'm going to work out something, because I do. I always come up with something. I'm going to start in this corner, and I'm using my Emot, one of my, the Uni Emot fine pens. They're called Everfines because apparently you don't wear the point down easily. I've yet to really work that one out. Pattern that I really enjoyed using during Inktober this year was TagH, which has got an H on the end of it. And it really is starting with a little shape and then drawing a nice big plumptious, I suppose, leaf or container around it, and it just creates this lovely kind of, well, I always think of it as almost like a succulent in some way. And they grow in all kinds of directions with me. I'm not fussy about having them all sort of going in the same direction. I think plants tend to grow as they wish, don't they, in the wild? Sort of. There's any gardeners who want to organise them, unless you're one of the people who likes sort of wildflower gardens, or sometimes cottage gardens can be a bit artfully chaotic, I suppose. It's not quite chaotic, the word, but you know what I mean. Can't find the word I want to use there. No, it's Monday, I think it's is it the 14th today? It is Monday the 14th of November, and it's, what time is it for me? Oh, it's 20 to 3 in the afternoon. So it's unusual. I say it's unusual for me to be recording videos this late in the day, but I seem to be doing an awful lot of it lately. I get other things to do, and if I don't get those things done, then it weighs on my mind if I spend my time doing other things. So you may have to bear with me on this one, but I know you're all very tolerant of me. Well, I hope so anyway. I've got some wiggle room for my book. I've been working on something else today though, which is a project I will share at some point, but it's not one I'm likely to do a tutorial on, because it would take, like this, it's going to take many videos or whatever, but it's been a small but big project for me. I'm working on it for over a week now, so, and I'm at the dodgiest part for me, which is adding colour. Always a concern to me, because I just don't trust my sense of colour or how to put them together, but I think it's working out okay. Possibly. Me saying that may amaze some of you, but seriously, you don't see all the messes I make before I get to something that's okay. If I stick with fairly monochrome, or maybe complementary colours, kind of, I usually do okay. Or just a couple of colours, 2 colours, 3 colours at max. 3 is pushing it. It's okay, but any more than that, and it all goes to pot. Well, it can do. It depends what I'm adding colours to. And if it's sort of like a fun, whimsical Doodle Worlds kind of colouring page that I do, then the more the merrier in colours, and the brighter and happier they are, because it's fun, it's meant to be that way. But sometimes things need a kind of coherence across them, and I've actually used sort of like 3 main groups of colours plus a background colour in what I'm doing, and it's creating a kind of coherence across the patterns. So all I can say is thanks to the arts and crafts and Art Nouveau movements, medieval manuscripts as well, because that's been a huge source of inspiration for me of late. Well, actually, always. The only thing is I didn't realise it. I'm subconsciously doing these, using these, or drawing upon these sources of inspiration, amongst others. You know, it's amazing how much gets stored in your head for later use and you don't realise it. Well, I didn't anyway. So I think I've come up to the end of my tag here. Up in this corner, I'm just going to add another little one there just to finish it off, close to that little thumb hole. I've got some odd shapes going on here, so I think I'm just going to add a couple around the edge. Yes, I've gone outside the line, but that's why I put the line in, because it gives me a guide as to where I should be stopping thinking about this. And I've definitely got something very strange going on here, so I think I might just add another one around there, and perhaps another one that goes here, and a little one there. Oh, look, it looks like a little flower now. There we go. So I've got all of these going on. And I think here perhaps I'll start to do something similar here, where I start to tidy the edge up or make it feel that things aren't growing in a too strange a way. So I can cope with strange, that's for sure. But I do want them to feel that they actually, you know, are much loved here and cared for. Okie doke, so that is my sort of like my main kind of filling pattern for today. But I think I want to add some flowery things here, and one of my favourite kinds of flowers is to draw a circle, put a circle or an oval in it somewhere, and then what we're going to do is we're going to draw petals around this that nearly go up to the edge of that outer circle, but not quite. So we've got that flower contained within that circle, and it encourages you to play with space and where you put that centre. So here I've put it off this way, and instead of making it wide horizontally, I'm making it wide vertically, and perhaps I'll try to get a few more petals in this time. And here the petals are going to hide behind, which is fine by me. Might have one there and there. Be quite nice. So I don't know why I like things like this, I just do. And no doubt I could come up with lots of words to try to justify why I like these, but I really don't see the point. And I can't help but go back and add these inner circles because it doesn't feel finished unless I do. But that is my preference. Doesn't mean that you have to do that. As I say, I'm just giving you some suggestions or ideas to start with. It's up to you whether you follow them, whether you go, no, but I'd like it if I did this, or I'm going to try this, and even better, I'm going to try this and see what happens. Oh, I like that. Because trying and seeing what happens is that process of exploring patterns and starting to make things very much your own, and developing your own way of doing things, your own style. And you may like what you go off and invent by going, oh, I wonder what it would happen if, or you may not. Either way, it's not an important thing. The important thing is that whether you like what you've done or not, you've learnt something. Sometimes I think we learn more from things we don't like, or that didn't work out the way we wanted, as long as there's some kind of reflection on it. Why don't I like this? What could I do to make it something I like? How could I draw this again but in a slightly different way so that I can like what I create or like it more? What can I try instead of this? And it's constantly working on your creativity and your confidence in doing things on your own terms, in your own way, I suppose. Because ultimately it needs to be your own work and your own style, I think. And although our styles overlap, nobody is truly unique, possibly. I don't know about that. We are all unique in our own way, but we overlap a lot. Like a lot of my work, as I've said, is inspired by arts and crafts, Art Nouveau, medieval, nature, and so on. But I'm not the only person who has inspiration from these things. But the way that I draw, the way that my hand moves, the colours I choose, badly or well, or anywhere in between with me, how I choose to add shadow and highlights, how I choose to put the patterns or the shapes together. So I do tend to stylise things. and that is one of my kinds of things to do. As well as whimsicality, because there's nothing wrong with a bit of whimsical in our lives. I think we all need whimsicality in our lives. An awful lot these days, given what goes on in the world. I like every opportunity I can to smile. And whimsy is a good way of making things smile, making me smile. So I've got a nice clutch of these here, and I think at the top here, I'm going to put one more in here. But I'm going to do a little flower on this one, as if it hasn't quite opened yet, or beginning to get something new. And then what this is going to lead me into is a pattern called Moonberry. Oh, I may get this wrong. But I think this is by Stephanie Jennifer. That's 7F5R. I could be wrong, I will look it up. And I may be taking a liberty with it, because I can't quite remember how you draw it. But I know there's a star in there somewhere. I'll put a dot in that one. This one I drew a 5-pointed star and put an aura around it. We could put a circle around it as well. Ooh, now that looks more like a blueberry, doesn't it? Especially if I colour those little bits in black. So they have those little holes, don't they, in their head, you know, in the ends, where you've got something that looks like a little flower in there. So why don't we do that this way? That's nice, I like that. And this one I'm going to put an aura outside it like that. Let's have a look at one more. So I'm going to draw a solid one and put a circle around that. Not sure if I like that one, but we're just trying different things. Perhaps I can make it more like a little flower, perhaps with that circle in the centre. Just going to draw around it and fill those little gaps in there. And then what I'm going to do now is I do want to put a couple of leaves here. So my leaves are sort of like, for these, are quite rounded and long, and for the vein in the middle I'm just going to put a shape like this. And I'll put another one here, because those are the kinds of leaves I like to put with this. And I think I may just pop another one over here, just to tie that in. I think we'll pop one here as well. And perhaps a little cluster of them, overlapping ones here, because I can. Oops, made a bit of a mess there. Essentially what I'm doing here is kind of segueing, or sort of moving from, you know, because my tags, each one of these is roughly circular. So what I did, I'm putting into words now, is I was thinking of circles as I was drawing them, and I thought that'd be nice to do a circle. I want to do some flowers. I'll put flowers inside that circle. And then from that I went across to, well, I did this one here, and it reminded me of Moonberry. So I've done some things here which may or may not be like Moonberry. And then I thought, well, we need some leaves, because, you know, leaves are cool on things. So I'm putting some leaves in around these, like so, just to be consistent around there. I'm going to leave some, well, I say I'm going to leave some gaps, not sure about that. Because again, it doesn't feel, this gap just doesn't feel right here, so if I just pop a leaf in there, it feels a bit better. And then here is where I'm going to start turning these back into some tag. So I'm going to gradually create rounder and rounder shapes, because my leaves really are a kind of a variation on these tags I started with. Instead of drawing a very circular shape like that, I've drawn something that is longer and thinner. So by choosing patterns that have got something similar, something in common with each other, they're patterns that often go together. And today, obviously, white space is not my friend. But it's okay, because it is what it is today. It's Monday. Moon Day. I think the Anglo-Saxon was Monas Day, TagH, which means Moon Day. So, quite apt I chose a Moonberry for a Monday, for a Moon Day. Anglo-Saxon being the language that was spoken in the UK between the times the Romans departed and 1066 when the French invaded. But it kind of came from all over, you know, invading tribes from Europe and so on. So I've got this here. This looks a bit odd here because I've got this long strand here, but it just doesn't feel that I've got any kind of transition to something that's a bit narrower. So I'm going to put some more tags up the side and see how we go with this, and see if I can get them just to kind of fade up to a kind of point there, which is what I've got here. Still not happy with it here, so let's just pop another one in there. Perhaps pop a couple of smaller ones around it. It's a bit better, but it's still not brilliant. So that is my drawing for today. 23 minutes-ish. It's not bad. I haven't done any line weights or anything today. That's odd for me. And rounding, adding ink in places. I will add some black areas where these petals have got gaps between them. So I'm just going to go and add some line weights around these central parts to these flowers here, just to help to bring feeling of some kind of volume here, like so. I moved awkwardly after I had bath this morning, and I've hurt muscles across the middle of my back, and I don't know what I did to do that. I just moved and I just thought, oh, that hurt. So I am having a lot of fun here today, trying to get comfortable. Not. So I'm going to do sort of like thicker black lines between all of these petals, because there's so many of them with a thicker line, they were looking a bit odd. So that looks a bit better. Okay. And perhaps with some of these I can add some little details like this. Or like this. So we're getting little bits of sort of like interest here. And I'm looking for ones that have got slightly bigger petals. This one would be a good one, I think, because I can I'm adding a curl on the same side going round, so like we do on like poke leaf, where it's just a little rounded upside down V shape. These can have some weight to the left, just going over the line again, so I can just thicken the line a little bit. So I'm thinking about the bottom and left when I'm doing this. So even if this is looked at upside down, the thickness of these lines will then be consistent with the patterns here. So it will look interesting no matter which way up you're viewing it, although it may look a bit bizarre sometimes because you've got shadows in strange places to what you would have perhaps normally, but that was a big thick one there. I think I've picked up some hair or some fluff on this pen. It's fine though, it'll work out fine. It's a sample. And when you're doing samples, you don't have to finish them or polish them off. Sometimes I like to leave them a little bit unfinished because I can go back with new ideas and add them to whatever it was I'd drawn. The same as here I could, if I'd thought about it. These aren't quite so easy to do because they're all over the shop here, but I'm using that idea of thickening the lines to the bottom and to the left. If I can't access the left, well, the bottom will have to do. But it adds another bit of repetition to this to create more of that, you know, idea of a pattern can be recognised. Remember that with things like this, it's not reality we're recreating, so, you know, if you don't want to add this, if it confuses you to do this, don't worry about it. The same as when you're adding shading, it's more to do with, because things are stylised rather than realistic, with using it as part of the pattern that you want to bring out. And you don't worry about light sources or anything else. My head works in terms of light source because that's what I've used for a long time. But we can see here I've got, just by adding thickness of line, there's some more definition to this. Sorry, I drift as I draw, and I don't know why. I've always done it. So I'm just going to add some shadows here. Some here. I am going to add line weight to my circles though, to the bottom and to the left. Add some, say, line weight. We can do that on these just a bit. Done that one there. So if there's a gap between them, I'm just filling that with ink and then adding some weight to the line. This will be quite thick there. This one will at the bottom as well. So here I've got some, I'm going to put a slit there and there because I managed to spill the line a bit further than I wanted to. And with these petals I'm going to draw a smaller version-ish inside them, like so. It's very very close together, very small, and they don't make sense as they are, but they might very well do eventually when shadow or whatever is added. With these, I think I'll just put a simple line in, because sometimes you don't need anything more than that. So this is done, I think, in terms of this needs, got engrossed doing something else, didn't I? Forgot to go and finish these off, but we can do that now, like so. This one too, then this one, and then this one. For this, I'm going to put some extra weight there, bottom and left. And that just creates my moonberries. So I think that's okay. I'm just going to throw my, say throw, got enough space here to draw a little circle that I can put my initials in and just finish that up. It's a bit messy there. There we go. Okay, so I will do some shading with you. Got my white gel pen there. Okay, so how am I going to do this? Well, let me get some marker pens first, because I am in marker pen mode, and I'll make no ifs, buts or bones about that. It's the set I managed to pick up. And I think I'm going to go with those red greys. I want that one. I want the red grey 11 if I can find it. This is the problem I have all the time. So I think I know what I want. So 150 is the, yeah, there we go. So I'm just going to use those because they will work lovely on this. So I think this is my lightest, which is the RG20, is it? Or RG110? No, the RG110. This is my lightest, and then this is my darkest. And I can tell from the tips which is which. You can see one's much lighter. So I'm going to start with the lighter one. And let's start with, I'm going to start with my moonberries. So I'm going to put some shadow. I'm going to think that I want to highlight up there, so I'm going to leave that white, and then I'm going to fill the rest of this in with my medium shade. I'm then going to pick up my, not my medium, that was my lightest shade, and I'm going to preserve that lighter space with a bit of that lightest colour, the white space with a bit of the lightest colour here, like so. And then I'm going to come in using the darkest colour. I'm going to put a fair amount of the darkest one in there. These overlaps, there needs to be shadow there. I like to put a little bit of shadow around the edge. I'm going to come back and use the medium tone just to blend this out. Then the lightest tone, again to blend this out. See, I've preserved that little highlight there. And this lightest tone will help to bleach out some of the darker tones as well. And then in here, I think I do have a colourless blender. So I'm going to use that in this area and just go around a little bit and into the medium shade just to lighten that up a bit. And I do think I'm going to need to use my medium tone on top of the darker tone just to blend that a bit. So that gives that a little bit of structure. So again, actually that was the lightest tone, wasn't it? It's fine, it'll work. So let's do the same here. I want to work out where I want to leave my highlight. I think I'll leave a highlight-ish. Well, I'll come back with Colour Splendor because I can't work it out at the moment. I think it's going to be around here where I have created this area. So let's go around here with my medium shade. See, I've left a circular shape there. Then I'm going to pick up my darkest shade. I'm definitely going to put shadow there. I'm going to have shadow coming up here, like so. And yeah, it's a funny shape because we've got shadow here as well. Perhaps a little bit there. And I can use the medium shade then just to blend this, hopefully. Blend it through. And then the lightest shade here. And then I'm going to use the Colourless Blender just to bring in my highlight, which will be around there, I think. That works for me. Okay, so I won't do any more of those because they're all essentially the same. With the little star shape, I'm actually going to put shadow towards the middle of them on these ones and this one. This one I'm going to put a little bit of shadow at the top. Here I'm definitely going to fill the inner one with this, and then with my medium shade I'm going to pop some shadow there as if we've got a hollow here. So I'm putting the shadow towards the top of this little star, and then round this edge I'm going to put the shadow there, then the medium colour. Actually this is the lightest tone I think I've picked up. That'll work. A little bit then, I'm leaving some white there so that stands up. Same kind of idea here, I'm going to put some of this round there, some of that round there, but I want the darkest colour in the middle there. And then I'm going to just put some of the medium tone around here, perhaps with a little bit of the lightest tone, just to blend it out and to create that, which will work there nicely. Okay, for this one I'm definitely going to pop a shadow there. Unfortunately my pen has just picked up some of that Union ink. There was a lot of ink in those black areas and it hasn't all dried yet, but I think it'll be fine. Put some dark in there and we'll have some intensity, I think, of colour going on here. So I'm just blending this out with medium shade just a little bit, and the blacks, there's nothing I can do about that now. I'm just going to use the lightest shade just to blend that end out, and then I'll come back with a colourless blender and give that a complete blend at the end. Yeah, it's really picking this black ink up. It's done it in a couple of places now. Okay, so in the centre of this here I'm going to put quite a lot of dark colour here, in here, with the darkest colour right to the top and the right. Oh no, wrong one, lighter shade, just in there, just to blend that out. I'm going to put shadow at the bottom here, a little bit of shadow around the top there, just to have that feeling that it's sticking up and so on. As far as the outside circles go, it's exactly the same as the Moonberry. It's thinking about where you want the highlights and the lowlights. The shadows are going to be more towards the bottom and right on the very edge. I'm very wary of doing that here because, and also underneath the petals, although you could treat them as if they're a disc, and that would most probably would work actually. So I'm going to fill this in here with So we can either have them looking like they're little rounded stones or balls with flowers growing from them, or we can treat them in a completely different way. So I'm going to use the darkest colour next, which I'm going to go around the petals to give shadows to the left and the right mostly. That's where the most intense shadows are, but I'm still going to put some around and in the gaps. Then I'll use the medium tone just to create a circle around them. So I'm drawing around the outside edge of these petals. Then I'm going to use the lightest tone once again just to allow this to blend smoothly together. And then for my petals I'm just going to put some shadow underneath that central part along the outside edge, and I'm using my lightest colour for this. And here they overlap here, so I've put some shadow around that overlap. And then I'm just going to use the colourless blender around the edge, just touching the edge of this and the paper so that this colour can fade into that area and just create a subtle shadow there. And for the TagH, I'm going to fill these little bits with the darkest colour. I'm not going to do any shading, I'm just filling them with colour. I could have coloured them in black, which of course is always an option. I got my markers out, so I'm going to do that. So I'll do a good selection of them. Just a couple more here. So once you start, it's easy enough to go through and do the whole lot of them. And I have to say, given that I've been using a bullet tip to colour in the drawing I've been doing the last few days on and off, I wish I'd had those colours in a brush tip, because you can get into the tiniest areas without overspilling too badly, as long as you have a light hand and are conscious of what you're doing. So I've ordered some. I know, it's awful. So that's my darkest one. Don't think I want to use the medium one, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the lightest one. Oh, this is the medium one. Genius. This is the lightest one, but that will fade with it, I'm sure. And I'm just going to fill this in and leave a highlight. Like so. It's with alcohol markers. If you want a highlight or white highlight, you leave the page white. Or use something like a white gel pen or like a Uniposca pen to add white afterwards. Me, I don't mind adding white afterwards, but here I just want the lightest colour and just that highlight that's there. So I'm just deciding where I want it. I'm drawing a circle and then I'm just adding colour around it. It doesn't take long. I forgot to erase the pencil lines, didn't I? Some of them, like these little ones, I'm just going to fill them all in with colour, because they are a bit further away, so they would be in shadow perhaps. Now I've done the same there because I just couldn't get the circle drawn in. Just being too heavy-handed with this now. I'm not going to finish this in the video. I'll do this while the video is processing and uploading. But and I'll post it in the community tab of my channel when it's done, so you can see it. And you'll see that I will use exactly the same ideas as I've got here right the way through the whole finished piece. And you can make it as complicated as you like or as simple as you like. I mean, I'm sticking to monochrome because, well, I like monochrome. I can't go wrong with monochrome, really. Knowing me, I could actually, but I've got a better chance of things just being okay with monochrome. So that's going to be all, going to colour some of those in, they're going to be all this lightish shade, because they're too small really to do anything else with, and a couple of dots of white gel pen will put a highlight in there. One more there. And there is my tag. But I'm going to go back with my colourless blender, and I'm just going to give a little bit of a swish around here just to allow the edges of that white area just to soften a little bit and to blend in with, or to fade out a little bit in respect to the coloured area. I can also just touch the areas that have got colour in. I didn't leave that white spot, and just touch it with the colourless blender, and we'll create a little highlight there if we wish. Because colourless blenders aren't really for blending, they're more about erasing or helping, you know, wetting the paper first to allow the colours to blend out on them. So the leaves I'd do in a similar way to this, thinking about shadow around the edge, because I forgot about the leaves. So here's my darkest colour, so I'm going to put some shadow here. I'll fill the central bit in, perhaps shadow here where it overlaps. So shadow where it overlaps, I'm going to put shadow in there. Got this here as shadow, but perhaps I'll just put a little bit around the outside. And I'm going to find my medium tone, hopefully. That's the one. And I'm going to add the medium tone around these just to do that. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a highlight that I'm going to use the lightest colour on. Oop, try opening the right end. And all will be fine, like so. And then I can use that colourless blender just to, wrong end, just to perhaps bring some highlights back, like so. It'll show up as it dries, but I hope you get the idea here with this. Now, I've got this here. So these are the next ones, like so. But what I do want to do is, it's not my darkest, that's the darkest. I'm going to use the chisel end just to go around the edge of my paper and just give a border here before I glue this in. And even round the thumb hole, an edge, and it may be a bit wobbly and wonky, but I'm going to leave it wobbly and wonky because wobbly and wonky is my part of my aesthetic or style, I suppose. But it also gives an edge to this. It gets rid of the darker colour. Now then, that tab, if I put it here, it's going to be awkward to get things in and out of. I could put it there. So I'm going to put it on the side, like so, because patterns have no direction up or down. What about the other side? Now I think I prefer it that way. and that's how I'm going to pop it into here. I'm not going to do that now because I'm going to finish colouring it first, and I don't want to run the risk of wrecking this. But you watch, if I turn it over, you get them on that side. Then if we open this out, it will disappear. This one, this is on this side, it'll become part of this. And you can see on that side. And then to open this, then we go this side, and we're back to here. And then open again, and we're back to where we started. All good fun. So, thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope to see you again soon. So until then, look after yourselves and find time to be creative. And I do apologise, I've just realised I didn't put the autofocus on, and I didn't really zoom in enough, but hopefully you got to see enough to get my gist. So until next time, look after yourselves, take care, and find time to be creative. Bye for now. Ta-ra. Hoil.